They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Why so serious?
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Well, I'm not doing anything. I want you to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Gary Allen with you here on Mainstreet, as I am every Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. We have a great show for you today, but before we get to that, I just want to remind you to check in with some of the other great shows. Comedian Roundtable, which just was on the air, as well as our Comedy Med show, and as well as some of the other shows, Monday through Friday. Oh, there we go. Thanks. It's Night Meds. We also have Comedy Therapy, and because of the cataracts, I'm not seeing as well. Jason's show on Wednesday from 4 to 8. And all the other great shows that are all part of our great network here. Without further ado, let me just introduce this gentleman to you. He's had over 30 films under his belt. He's been in the business for over 30 years, 200 hours on television. He is a martial arts expert. He has worked with some of the biggest names in the business: Roger Corman, John Landis, Angela Lansbury, Sandra Bullock, Tom Berenger, excuse me. He is an athlete. He's a martial arts expert, as well as why he has now come to the Mainstreet. I just got a chance to meet this gentleman, but I've admired him for so many years. He is the one and the only, as you know him, Duncan Macleod of the Clan Macleod, Mr. Adrian Paul.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
What an intro.
I did an intro like that for a good friend of mine, Ray Abruzzo. Ray and I have known each other for a number of years. We both have a story on how we got into the business. The same person got us our first starts in the business, and I gave him a great opening like that. And he looked into the camera. He said, "Gary, who? Gary Allen, who?" And he does that to me all the time. Adrian, welcome to Mainstreet, and thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us.
You're welcome. Thank you for bringing me on.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to talk about Sword Experience before too long, your new venture, which I think is exciting because you're going to be here in Florida in just a couple of weeks, and I'm really looking forward to helping you promote that as well before this program is over with. But I want to start. You are a footballer. You come from Italian and English descent, but you're a footballer when you were a youngster, and you played on the Spartan League back in the day, the London Spartan League. And is that how you got your first introduction to show business in a way?
No, I mean, and again, let's quantify this correctly. Soccer opposed to football for those American fans out there.
Yes.
It was soccer that I played, but if I say that in England, they're like, "It's football. What are you talking about?" No, I started football. I started playing when I was because like in England and a lot of other countries, soccer is like a daily occurrence. You basically, I don't think you can do it quite as easily these days, but you could go out and just go and kick the ball around, and that's what we used to do.
Adrian, if you could adjust your camera up a little bit, because when you get real close, we don't see you too much. And that handsome
probably
face.
Better that way, isn't it?
Well, no. You have a very handsome face. Now I have a question for you. I told you I was going to ask you this. A friend of mine, Patricia, and a lot of others have asked me to say to you, and that as far as they're concerned, you should have been James Bond at some point in your career. Were you ever approached?
Your
microphone cut out. Your microphone is still cut out, Adrian. I don't know. I don't. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, but Adrian will be with us in just a second, I'm sure. No, can't hear you now. No. Maybe if you back out and then come back in again, and we'll see if that connects up, and I'll talk to the folks. Tom, if you could help with that, I'd appreciate it very much. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. It'll only be another couple of minutes. He was going to answer the question about being James Bond, and we'll get that answer for you in just a little tiny bit. Adrian has spent an awful lot of time in the United States of America. Of course, I said at the top, he was born in London, England. He's one of 3 sons to his mom and dad. Most of you, again, know him as Duncan Macleod from the Clan Macleod, the Highlander. There is so much more to this gentleman than just the Highlander, as we will get into as the hour progresses. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here. Adrian, are you with us now?
I hope so. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
That's so bizarre. It just cut off on its own. That's technology these days, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. So getting back to the James Bond question, were you ever approached?
Yeah, I actually, when Pierce Brosnan was up for it, I actually went up to meet with them. Actually, Barbara Broccoli, I think I met with, but that was way before I should have been considered for it. It was just because I was English and dark, looking like Sean Connery. I think that I was brought in after that. Then after the Highlander series, and then it became something a little bit different. I had all the fans about it, but I wasn't considered that at that point. I think I was either on the wrong side of the Atlantic. I don't know. I don't know what the reason was. I wasn't even really looked at by them, but although online there were a lot of polls, etc., running around, pegging me up for the role.
Yeah. Well, you do look an awful like Sir Sean Connery, who I had the pleasure of meeting in Chicago when he was doing The Untouchables, because one of my classmates at the Groundlings was Kevin Costner. And I was working in Chicago in the Attorney General's office, and I got to meet the entire cast of The Untouchables, and I got to meet Sir Sean Connery, and I did an impression of him, to which he just kind of looked at me and went, "You need to work on it, boy. You just need to work on it." And it was kind of funny. You came to the United States as a young man after leaving London, leaving England. And then, of course, you were back in France doing the Highlander and everything. What hit you? When did acting become what you wanted to do back in England? When did that become part of your world? That's where I want to go.
Well, I started really in Europe when I was probably in my early 20s, very early 20s, when I was doing choreography and dance and stage shows and all that type of stuff. And I really liked being on stage. And so I started studying in England, but then quickly kind of transferred to America because I had some friends of mine that happened to be coming to California. And he said, "Oh, I've got a place for you to stay." I thought, that'd be kind of fun. All right, let me try California. And so I came out to California, and I was again doing the choreography and stage work and all that type of stuff, modeling at the time, and then studying acting. And really, it was kind of through that I started really understanding that I really wanted to do this because I did like being on stage.
Yeah. I've never known a shy actor that didn't like being on stage or didn't enjoy being in front of the camera. But not every.
Well, that's you might say that, but I'll be totally honest with you. A lot of actors, you take De Niro for instance, he's not that big of a personality off camera that he is on camera. True. And I think what actors tend to do is they're able to create the persona they don't really show people on camera, and of course they are playing different roles. I mean, if you're looking at Meryl Streep, she's about 100 different people in herself, which is brilliant. So I think there's actors really, we all have 2 sides. Jim and I tend to have 3. We have a side that we show people and the side who we really are. And I think that's, with actors, they get to show those other sides in the roles that they play.
Yeah, exactly. And you've had some incredible roles. Like I said, you work with Roger Corman, you work with John Landis. You did a Mask of the Red Death. Then you followed that up. And I'm looking down, by the way, you'll have to excuse me. Then you had War of the Worlds. And then you did Dark Shadows. And then you did something called The Owl, which wasn't successful at CBS, but it led to The Highlander. And what I'm getting at is a lot of the roles that you've done, or of recent, have all had to do with fight scenes, and you choreograph those, and etc. Um, when the Highlander came along, did you folks realize how big it was going to become, or did you just think one season and that's it?
No, I mean the thing about Highlander was, I remember being in an office, and I've told this story before. It was probably about 3 or 4 months before I got the role became available, and I saw Highlander 2 poster, which, by the way, the producers don't actually admit never happened because they went into space, and that never happened. Anyway, but I was looking at this poster, and I said, I'm going to do something with this. I know I'm going to do something with this. I just felt I was going to do it, and I went in for the audition. I was the first person they ever saw for going into a meeting, and then they had casting in England, in New York, in Los Angeles, and then they brought me in for a reading, and then they narrowed it down to 5 people, and this was like over 3 months, and they then said, "Yeah, we got 5 people. We do the screen test. We'll bring the screen test in." It then came down to 2 people, myself and somebody else. And the thing was, back then, you had to realize that it wasn't just one network that was handling it. It was the way the show had been sold at the time. It had been sold to Japan, to Germany, to France, to Italy, and I think England. I think there were 5 countries that it was actually supposed to be looked at. And so 5 countries had the say in who the Highlander was going to be. The eventual producers had the final say, but so it took a number of weeks. Usually when they do screen tests like this, within a week or two, that you really kind of know what it's going to be. And after about 2-3 weeks, we heard nothing, and usually what that means, they're not interested.
Yeah.
And so my agent said, listen, I think it's gone away. I think we're done. I'm going on vacation. So he left on vacation, and 2 days later I get a call. I was coming back from the gym, and my wife at the time, she was my fiance, my soon-to-be ex-wife. Anyway, she basically said that, "Oh, you got it." I said, "Got what?" She said, "The Highlander. And by the way, you're leaving in 3 days." I said, "What?" And so, it was very quick, and I was rushed up to Vancouver to start doing training and meeting everybody. But then I was a little worried because I was going to play Connor Macleod at first instead of Duncan Macleod, because Duncan didn't exist. So I'd already done that doing War of the Worlds. You mentioned War of the Worlds a minute ago. I went in there to replace a character, and people hated that, because what I found is that audiences tend to like to see characters and like to identify, and they're comfortable with seeing that character play that character. If they have somebody else come in to replace that character, they can't put their minds around it, and they will always compare one to the other. So I was eternally grateful when I heard that Christopher Lambert was coming in to reprise his role and begin the series. So that meant they had to come up with another name for me, and eventually just stuck on Duncan.
You mentioned Christopher, and I guess a lot of people acquaint the movies, of course, with him, and of course you did Endgames with him. You did 2 movies with him, if I'm correct with that. But I want to go back just for a minute here. Through your entire career leading up to the Highlander, and a lot of projects like the Colbys and working for Roger Corman, and you worked with Angela Lansbury as well, and Sandra Bullock. What did you get from Angela, an English woman? I would imagine, like me, I learned when I was doing Hill Street Blues and St. Elsewhere. I learned from some of the senior actors about acting, even though I studied. What did you learn from Angela Lansbury?
I think her patience and her calmness on set. I mean, she was a total pro, very nice lady. Yeah. And she would come on, she would do her work, and she would leave again, because obviously being a lead in a series, you're there all the time, and you know what it is you have to accomplish. Coming in as a guest star, you are trying to figure out what the pace of the show is, what the tone of the show is, and when you're a lead like that, you already have it. So she was extremely nice, and I found that was something, because it didn't matter who it was that was coming in. She was extremely nice to me and to anybody else that was new on the set.
Yeah, I've heard from some of my fellow actors who have done guest starring roles on different shows that the leads weren't always as nice or whatever. But when I did Hill Street Blues, St. Elsewhere, and I did Apocalypse Now, when I flew to the Philippines to do some of those scenes, which you don't see my face, thank God. I mean, this face doesn't need to be seen by anybody at any time. By the way, we're on with Adrian Paul. You know him as Duncan Macleod The Highlander. He's also going to be talking to us a little bit about Sword Experience, which is his new project. We're going to get to that in a little bit. You're listening to Mainstreet right here at 4 p.m. every Friday afternoon. Adrian, you have, like I said, you have done an awful lot of different projects with John Landis and Roger Corman, those two gentlemen. What did you get from them that helped you move forward, like with the Highlander and the Colbys and some of the other projects that you've been on?
Well, the if I can remember correctly, yes, when I worked with John Landis, it was after I'd already done Highlander.
Oh, okay.
And I was already involved with John. He would tell a joke every 2 minutes. John is just like extremely like every 2 minutes. And I remember, I mean, there was Natasha Kinski on there. There was a bunch of actors on this set. And Natasha came up to me. She said, "Oh, my friend and myself and Elizabeth, we love you on the show on the Highlander." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much. Do you think you could get on the phone with her at some point and talk to her?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, sure." Which is weird because usually actors don't tell other actors to do that type of thing. But anyway, so I'd forgotten about it, and we were shooting, and John Landis has got me working on set, and I'm now hooked up to an IV. I'm supposed to be been shot. I can't remember, knocked out, shot, something, and I'm hooked up with an IV, and we're about to roll a take, and in comes Natasha, and she says, "Oh, I've got my friend Elizabeth on the phone. Can you talk to her?" I'm like, yeah. She goes, so she picks it up. I go, "Hello." She goes, "Hi, this is Elizabeth Taylor." I'm like, hi. I'm like, and John goes, "Come on, Adrian, we got to roll." I said, "John, I've got an icon on the phone. I can't go right now." So and she was very nice. She was extremely polite. Yeah, really nice. But I mean, it was just bizarre,
Yeah.
From John, I got the fact, and I kept in contact with John. I really like John. I mean, what I learned from John is that you really have to, as a director or as an actor, you have to know what your next project is going to be. You're only as good as your last project. That's really what it is.
Yeah. I had an experience like that. I had a friend of mine who worked at Simon & Schuster in New York, and I just come off the road, and I was living in Las Vegas, and a lot of my act is impersonations and stuff, and I always did a Bill Clinton impersonation, and he called me up at 6:30 in the morning, my time, 9:30 East Coast time, and he said, "I'm going to count to 3. Please do your Bill Clinton impression for this person." I did the impression. You'll never guess who. Now, Bill Clinton was not on the phone on the other end. It was Hillary.
You kind of stuck for that, don't you? What did she think of your impression?
Well, she thought it was pretty good because I said, "Hey, Hillary, it's really." And I had met Bill. A buddy of mine worked for Bill as his chief advance, and I was on Air Force One. I was on Air Force One numerous times because I worked for Nixon when I was in the United States Air Force. But oh yeah, I've been hit with that many times. Friends will call me up and say, "Hey, do this impression for somebody. Do Elmo or Cookie Monster or somebody for somebody," and it's always somebody out of the blue that like, yeah, the guy that did Elmo. I'm doing Elmo for the guy that did Elmo. It's like, please. But she liked it. I got to meet her later when she was running for president the first time, and we talked and we shared some experiences with Brian, who was the chief advance. It's fun. I mean, this business brings people together, which is another part I want to get in. How is it when you get on the set with an Angela Lansbury? Or now I know you worked with Sandra Bullock when she was just kind of starting out.
It's her first film.
But yeah, how was that? How was she compared to what we see today? I mean, she is the darling.
I loved Sandra. I mean, I kept in contact with Sandra for a couple of years, and because that was her first film, and I keep telling people she owes me a necklace because we were fooling around, as actors do. You kind of you're sitting in a hotel room, you're like, "What are we going to do tonight? Oh, we'll go out to eat at such and such. Oh, let's go get the other actor." So as we did that, we were going into Tate Donovan. We knocked on Tate Donovan's room, and she jumped on my back and hit me, and the crystal I had on the frame bust in half. Yeah. She says, "Oh, I'll get you a new one. I'll get you." She never has, but anyway. But she was very green at that point, and I saw her about I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years later, probably at a party, And she said, "Oh, hey, Adrian, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, good." She said, I said, "What's going on?" She said, "Well, I'm up for this really cool film with Sylvester Stallone," which was the one that really kind of broke her. You know,
Right. Yeah, we've lost you again.
My mic
There you
suddenly
go.
mute itself. I have no idea why. I
It's
think I
okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Anyway, said, I'm kind of excited about this film, and this was basically, the Demolition Man. Is that it? Demolition.
Oh,
Was that what it was? It was the first film, the one she did with Stallone, where she played a futuristic cop, and he came
yeah.
back. And so, then her career took off from there. And but I always liked Sandra. I thought she was a good actress at the time, and
America's sweetheart.
but we were both kind of,
When you've done all these different projects, and I'm sure you've been home to your hometown in England, how do they treat you there? Any different
they
than
don't even
people do
recognize
here?
you.
Really?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, most of the time, I mean, nowadays, people I get recognized sometimes. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of people don't say anything. For instance, I just came back from vacation in Mexico, and nobody said anything. And I just so happened to have I left something in the hotel room that they're trying to send back to me right now. And last night, they never said a thing to me. And I said, look, I need to get this and this and this. She said, okay. And by the way, thank you so much, Highlander, Mr. Highlander. And I was like, really? And so sometimes you don't know who recognizes you, who wants to say anything. And in England, they people do recognize you, but they're a little bit more reserved in a sense in how that you. And now it's been so long that it's kind of past history in a sense. But
well, I will tell you, I found the messenger boards for all the Highlander fan clubs to post about this show coming up, and I got to tell you something. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of fans of yours and the movie and the show, and that has to be gratifying. Like a very good friend of mine, Loretta Swit from MASH. I mean, that's an iconic show.
Mm-hmm.
I think The Highlander is an iconic show, and as I said, it allows you to let your mind go out here, because what you did, and that's the next question, as a choreographer, did you blocked a lot of those fight scenes in The Highlander, I assume, at some point or another, if not all the way through. How many hours of rehearsal and blocking does it take just for a couple of minutes on film of you doing a sword fight with whomever on that show?
Well, we did have choreographers on the show. The first one was Bob Anderson, he did absolutely everything. Lord of the Rings, Knight's Tale, Highlander. He did all the films. Big, fabulous gentleman.
Right.
And then I had F. Braun McCash. So we always had somebody that was doing the choreography. But then what I would do, because as I got better with, and I studied more, because I was always going off to study, different sword moves and different martial art techniques. And as I got to get better, I would be able to know what would suit me better. So once the choreography had been done, I was able to, adjust it slightly to what I could do and what felt good for me to do,
Mm-hmm.
But that said, the time it took, sometimes we would be filming, and I would be literally on one scene doing one show, and I'd be coming off and rehearsing the fight for the next show there that I'd be shooting the following day. So, it was, and sometimes I had very little rehearsal. I mean, I worked with a gentleman called Anthony DeLongis, great sword master, and he did bull whip for Michelle Pfeiffer and Catwoman, and he's worked with a lot of people. And he said to me on my podcast, he said, I always remember that we went on one fight where we were rehearsing on film. That was basically how it was. So sometimes it's just different. It's just you get used to it. It's like learning lines. You get better and you're quicker to learn them as you do them, because you're doing it constantly.
Yeah, me and lines are nothing. I suffer from like what Jay Leno suffers from, is dyslexia. And Jay and I he sent me a birthday card once, and I called him up and I said, Leno, how am I supposed to read this? I know it says happy birthday in here somewhere. How am I supposed to read it? He said, yeah, put it up to a mirror and you'll be able to read it. I've known Jay since I was like 9 years old. That's a long story. you directed a number of the episodes of The Highlander. How is that to suddenly you're working with all these actors that you've been familiar with for a number of years, and now you're directing them as well as acting with them? How is that? How did they take to it? Because you had an incredible cast. And follow up, who was your favorite leading lady? I loved Alexandra, the first one. I really did.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm actually doing right now. I'm doing a you talked about sword experience. I have a Patreon site where we do different things that we offer people. And one of the things I'm doing right now is behind the scenes, my stories of each episode. And looking at, I'm into season 1 right now, about 2/3 of the way through season 1. And Alexandra she just had a great way about it, and the relationship between Macleod and her was always it was good. It was, and the funny thing was, I remember she left the show in the 4th season of the 4th episode of the 2nd season, and at the time, it takes a while. Once you shoot something, it airs, and then you get some popularity, etc. But it hadn't really aired by the time she left the show. It was just beginning to really air in France and other places. And when I went back after, I think it was the 2nd season, I saw her in Paris. She said, "Oh my God," she said, "I'm being recognized for absolutely Highlanders. Everybody's looking at me everywhere. Everywhere I go, you're Tessa, you're Tessa. Oh my gosh, it's Tessa." And she said, "I didn't realize the popularity of the show. And maybe I made a mistake." But I said, "No, you're okay. You did fine." But
I thought she was an incredibly beautiful woman, and
she was fabulous. I loved her. But my other favorite was Elizabeth Grayson. Who came on. And I can't. The funny thing is, you kind of Elizabeth was she's like anybody who likes chocolate. She's the little delicacy that you'd really like to eat, and so she was the little thing that Macleod could always kind of get like attracted to, but he knew he couldn't have it. It was kind of that thing. And she was always getting him into trouble, which he kind of liked, but he knew he shouldn't do it. It's that type of relationship.
What I liked about your character was he had a lot of little of the devil in him. He had a great sense of humor, which I'm sure is part of your personality as well. And I also loved it when you lived on the houseboat across from the cathedral at Notre Dame. I thought that was hilarious. But if you were actually able to do that, I would imagine, Adrian, that's expensive to have a houseboat across from the cathedral of Notre Dame.
Well, they used to bring that in every show that we were in. I mean, those houseboats are not that expensive. Mooring it is what costs the money. The problems we had when we used to live on or shoot on the river there was some seasons we would come back and it would be totally flooded, so we wouldn't be able to actually shoot there. We'd actually have to move the houseboat to a different location somewhere else. And one time we did it opposite the Eiffel Tower, and the reason we moved it there was actually because you mentioned about directing. I was directing one of the episodes, and I had Elizabeth Grayson falling down this whole thing with a massive Hennessy sign G comes smashing down about 40 feet. And the only reason I wanted this shot because it was an epic type of shot that we'd not done before, and we didn't have time to do it because it took half the day to do. And we were shooting 9 pages a day, which basically means you're running fairly quickly when you're doing it. So this particular shot alone, this scene alone, was half the day. So I had another 6-7 pages to shoot prior. So we shot it opposite Notre Dame. I did it all on a Steadicam, which is a moving camera, that we didn't have to do too many cuts, but it actually worked for the episode anyway. So, working with Lizzie was fun. I mean, Peter Wingfield and Stan Kirsch and Jim Burns. We had a great time. I mean, there is a certain thing like, okay, now you're going to direct me. Okay, now, okay, yeah, I get it. With Elizabeth Grayson, one time we were doing a flashback scene, and she wasn't getting to where I thought she should be getting to. So I was pushing her a little bit, and it made her cry. And she came out afterwards. She said, "You don't need to make me cry, Adrian." I said, "Go do the scene now." And she was great in it. And so I was like, "Yeah, I didn't need to, but it works." So I think directors are supposed to push actors to places that they're not necessarily going to want to get to. And so that's the job of a director. He's supposed to. The actor is the clay, and the director is the artist or the clay maker. So he creates you into the statue or whatever he's trying to create you to be. So as long as you trust them, then that's the key thing.
Well, how was Jim Burns to work with, and the young man who was the motorcycle
Stan Kirsch?
Yeah, Are you still in touch with any of these folks?
Yeah, Jim Burns. I see Jim. I saw actually Peter Wingfield, who came in when my youngest son was born a year ago. He was Peter Wingfield now is an esthetician, not esthetician. What I'm talking
Anesthesiologist.
And thank you, anesthesiologist. Thank you, anesthetician. And he was at the hospital, so he came and saw. He was the first person, other than my wife and myself, who saw our kids. So I do keep in contact with them. Unfortunately, Stan Kirsch died a year and a half ago. I think it was 2 years
God.
now. So that was most unexpected. So we do keep in contact, and it is we're all getting older, and things happen, and it's life. That's part of it, and that's what Highlander was. When Tessa and Richie were shot in the parking lot in season 2, it was unexpected, and that's basically what life gives you. It gives you the things that are unexpected, so you got to live it as best you can.
Yeah, because I learned. I served 2 tours in Vietnam and as a helicopter pilot, and I will tell you, you learn quickly that if they aren't shooting at you, it's a good day.
Yeah, right.
If they're not shooting at you, and I lost a lot of friends, and Memorial Days and days like that, I call up the buddies that I knew, and we talk. I don't join veterans groups and stuff because I don't want to sit around a bar. But you learn how precious life is. I mean, when my dad died in '99, I said I have 75% of my family and friends are up in heaven. I have more people up in heaven than I do on earth. You reach a certain age. I'm 68 years old, and but I don't feel it. I don't act it. I mean, but you learn how precious life is, and just take it as best you can. I want to switch gears here just a little bit. I want to talk about sword experience. You also have, I believe, a peace fund that is also a charity that you are very, very involved with, as well as on radio. But I want to talk about sword experience. How did that come about? And I know it had something to do with your charity, the Peace Fund.
Well, the Peace Fund's been running since 1997. We've worked in numerous different countries. We've done a bunch of different things, and
Your voice kind of cut out there, Adrian.
Decided to do it again. It decided just to mute.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It's doing it to be mean.
it's the little gnomes that we get that move the stuff around. They
yes.
They just press the button. Right. Okay. Anyway, so I was doing a con in Sacramento, and we were raising money for a young man. And I said, well, people have asked me so many times to do, sword techniques, sword this, sword that. And I said, well, I can run something and see what it would be like. And we did it, and we raised a lot of money for this young man. And I thought, well, actually, this is not a bad idea to do, because people seem to be interested in being able to do this. But I'm not there to teach you a specific style. I don't want to teach you katana. I don't want to teach you, different, because there are a lot of teachers.
Yeah, the gremlins are at it again.
Again, look at that little bugger. Yeah. That little gnome keeps coming back, doesn't he?
Aye, he's there, Adrian. He's doing his thing there today.
Poor little bugger. Anyway, so I forgot what I was talking about.
So you were raising money for this young man.
Yeah. So we raised the money for it, and I thought, there's a lot of interest in this, and there were so many at that point, which was 2000, and it was the summer of 2015 that we started doing this. And I said, let me just test this and see if people are interested in doing this, because there's a lot of shows now that have sword work. There was Game of Thrones running at the time. There was, loads and loads of shows. And I thought, well, let's see. So, and we got a lot of response for it. And I said, well, it's actually, I'm going to create a business around it. So from that point, I started creating a business. I was actually, 2016 was the first time we started launching it. And, since then it's grown and grown and grown, and we've done 9 countries. We've done over 1,000 and some, a couple of thousand participants, because we have about 30 people. Sometimes the biggest one I've done is about 85 people, which was a corporate event I did. But the convention events, I've had 50 people, which is too many because I really want to give people one-on-one type of feedback. Right. So we kind of limit our things to about 40 people now. And we have all different types of stuff. We have retreats, we have academy events, we have I've got a VertCon, a virtual event coming on where I've got like 10 different instructors coming on in May 15th. May 8th, May 15th, anyway, one of those dates. Basically, that's really some of the instructors I've worked with who are master swordsmen. And it's not just a Zoom thing. You'll be working with them, being taught by them. So and we've got vendors and I've got celebrities. So it's a mini con that we're putting on right now to sort of bring more awareness. And originally it came out of course, the COVID situation where everybody's sitting at home. Right. So, it's grown into a variety of different things now.
We're talking to Adrian Paul from the Highlander, as well as Sword Experience. We're talking about his Sword Experience Academy, which is going to be in a number of places. Gary Allen with you here on Main Street, as I am, at 4 p.m. every Friday afternoon. You're going to be in Santa Clara on April 17th. You're also going to be in Lakeland, Florida, which isn't far from me, on April 24th. Both of them, one is at 9:30 to 5:30, the other one is at 10:30 to 5:30, and then you've got another number of events coming up, which is exciting. Do you see the big smiles on the people's faces when you appear at these events and they actually get to meet you?
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I mean, it's but I'm there to do a job for them. I'm there to sort of, they get to swing the sword with me, if you like, and they get to also learn some stuff and meet friends. And we have a lot of people that are constantly coming back because they found a community of people that kind of they share likes with, share different things with. It's kind of funny because, I'm launching I want to call it a fan experience, Star Wars type of feel. Academy that we're opening up. It's called VVV Institute, Vitae Vinvertus Institute, and it's all based on Star Wars because I wanted to get into the younger groups, and so we really kind of we're trying to appeal to a lot of audiences and people that come through. Some have never heard about Highlander, some have. A lot of people have, of course, but they're constantly coming through for different reasons, and it's really fulfilling. And I get to then visit a lot of different places. I go to England and France and Italy and Germany and Hungary and all those places to do some of these events. And I go to castles, some really cool castles we've been to, and really cool abandoned buildings that we can do a really cool thing. And so we choose all these things so you get something that you might not really experience most of the time.
Where can they find the Sword Experience? Is what, swordexperience.com?
No, it's swordxp.com.
Oh,
Sword Experience was too long. It was like, let's make it a lot shorter. It's easier to type in. Swordxp.com.
XP. And you can find out everything you want to do. Now, I want to get into the martial arts part of it because that's been a major part of your life. Polly Chaser, he's over in England. He's over in Europe, and he said the Highlander was great. Martial arts. It's a discipline. You learn technique. You're a different person from the day you walked in to study martial arts, whatever it may be, as compared to the person you are, say, 5 years later, if you stick to it. And my attitude is not only about martial arts, about anything. What you put into it is what you get out of it. But it teaches you discipline, and it helps you propel yourself into possibilities of success in life just by understanding who you are through the art of martial arts.
Yeah, I think it gives you what you mentioned, and I actually do say this to people all the time. You get out of it what you put into it. I'd say all the time. So it is true. And martial arts is one of those things that it shows you who you are. It does teach you discipline, because you have to have discipline to do things over and over and over again in the same way. But the thing is about it is that, you can't think that whenever you do a martial art that you know it all. I mean, it's really simple. There's always more to learn. And I after doing, I think I've been doing it 2-3 years, and I'd done certain forms, and I'd learned certain things, a whole bunch of things. And then my teacher just went, okay, you've been playing on this level up here. Now you got to drop it down here and look about 360. Look at the forms you're doing and that motion you're doing, and think of it not being a punch, but it's a throw, or think of it being a block from behind. And I went, oh my gosh, there's so much more I'm not even looking at, because we just see the front portion of things. So it allows you to really explore a lot of things in yourself, and how do you deal with things. And I absolutely agree with you when you say it takes it into everyday life, because if you have that discipline and things to do in everyday life, in martial arts, you'll do this, you'll apply it to martial art, to everyday life as well. So I think martial arts gives you that, and I think the same thing applies with sports. Sports is the same thing, because you have to do things constantly. I'm telling my son that, all the time. He's 8 years old. He's a good little soccer player, but I said, you're not going to do anything unless you do this all the time. If you want to do it, I don't care what you do. I really don't care what you do. You can do tiddlywinks, you can do skateboarding, you can do tennis, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
But you've got to want to do it, and you've got to do it. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm just going to do it," and it's a waste of time, because it's no point.
Yeah, no, you've got to really love what you do. It's that old adage: if you're doing what you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that has to do with sports, athletic endeavors. If you're going to be a golfer, learn to be a good golfer. Now, you may never be Jack Nicklaus. Okay. You may never be in the martial arts, Adrian Paul, but Adrian Paul is learning every day. And I think that's important in my world. I can't wait for these. And I admit it, cataracts have to be removed in the next 30 days, both of them. I can get back reading again. I love to read. I do this show because I'm interested in what Adrian Paul has to say and what other people have to say, and I want to bring it to the people. Doesn't matter what size you are for martial arts, does it? You can be the little guy, you can be the tallest guy, you can be thin, you can be a heavy set. It's all part of who you are inside.
The funny thing is, I was just watching, I think it was last night or the night before, I was watching this WWF or MM. No, it wasn't MMA. It was WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, and the women's champion is she's tiny, and she was going up against this 6-foot girl. The things this little girl was doing was amazing. It was astounding, and of course, you look at it and go, a lot of it is pre-planned, or how it's going to go, but you can't take away the athleticism of this woman, and you can't take it. So, and it didn't matter if she was doing certain things like that, and the hits were going to be real. She would be hurting you. So it wasn't a question of her size, because she was going up against a 6-foot person. Your eyes are the same as a 6-foot person. If I stick my fingers in your eyes, you're going to still get blinded, right? If I hit you in the ear, in the throat. All these things are the same with whatever human being you have. It just means you've got to get to them quicker. So you can not have to be 6 foot tall to actually, or 10 foot tall to actually be successful as a martial artist.
No, you don't. You really don't. But I think the benefits that you get out of it also help you in life, as you discussed earlier. We had one question from Polychaser. Are you a master?
No, I'm not. I mean, listen, to me, I like doing what I do. I've done it for many, 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 many years. I've had certificates and all that stuff. But to be honest, I stopped doing certificates because I thought to myself, all it is a gratification for me to tell people, listen, I'm a black belt. I've seen black belts that can't even move. I've seen masters or teachers that come on my sword experience. One in particular that I remember, who was, I had somebody walk out saying she didn't know what she's doing. And I agreed with them, because so to me, that is just it's sometimes fluff. I think you as yourself have to know what your abilities are to be able to do. And if you work at it, you could be a master. I could see some guy down the street who is like a little seller of a little 7-Eleven store that is doing it all the time. And then there's a guy that's been been given the belts way too easily, which I think happens today, to be totally honest. It's a gratification. I've got a belt and I've got loads of belt in my closet. I hold my pants up, right? So, to be honest, I think sometimes you just have to. It's for you. It's not for anybody else. The belt is to show other. Do you know why belts were created?
No.
They were created in Japan because there was a master. I can't remember what the master's name was, and he was going around to different dojos in different cities showing his technique. But then when he would go back to the dojo, he didn't know who he taught what techniques to. So he said, okay, you've learned these techniques, number one, you'll take this belt because then I can tell what I've taught you. So it wasn't about I'm better than you because I've got this belt. It was just basically to show you what you'd learned, what you've been able to have been taught. So today we put so much emphasis on I'm a black belt, I'm a this belt, I'm a that belt. I think there are some people out there that, and it's happening now. You got the MMA. They don't have belts. They're just fighting, and and a lot of the Chinese masters are getting beaten by them.
Yeah, I don't know. And not everything is like Mr. Miyagi. With the viciousness that goes on. Yes, somebody wants to win, but I learned a long time ago, Adrian, if you are a skilled martial artist or a baseball player or a football player, you don't have to tell anybody. They already know you're good at what you do. You don't have to broadcast it by wearing a fancy belt or anything else. When Adrian Paul walks into a gym, they know it's Adrian Paul. They know what you can do. If you are anybody, you don't have to announce it to anybody. The true meaning of power is having it and never having to use it.
Correct.
I mean, that's just me. I just want to remind people again, this is Adrian Paul from the Sword Expo. That'd be swordxp.com. Please look it up. There's a ton of things going on. He's kind enough to join us here on Mainstreet, as we are on Fridays at 4 p.m. every afternoon. Remind you again, he's going to be in Santa Clara on April 17th between 9:30 and 5:30 p.m., 9:30 in the morning and 5:30 it'll be p.m., I guess, yeah. You'll be in Lakeland, Florida, not far from me. You're also going to be in Akron, Ohio as well on May 8th. That's going to be cool. And you're going to be on the 24th of April. You're going to be in Lakeland, Florida. Please look those dates up when you go to swordxp.com, and you'll find out where Adrian is and everything else going on with him. Are there people that you have come across in the martial arts field that you just looked at them and just laughed and just went, you're teaching and you don't even know what you're doing?
It's not my job to laugh at people. My job is to have
my
inside.
Own opinion. Inside.
I mean, I listen. Everybody has a way to teach people, and sometimes, I mean, as I said, I'm dealing with instructors on a weekly basis, pretty much now, because we have to look at when we go to a certain place. We look at bringing in instructors from there to help me teach the groups. And so therefore we have people saying, oh, I'd like to do it, but I have to look at video to actually see what they can do, because anybody can tell you what they think they can do. But in reality, I can spot something in like 5-10 seconds whether somebody's actually knowing what they're doing just by the way they're standing and the way they're actually going to swing. So that to me is, and if they don't do it, it's not a question of me to say, well, no, I don't agree with what you're doing. It's just you're not going to be suitable for what I want to teach, for what I think, it can be done. And it's that to me is paramount. And you've got to be in line with the same person, because not everybody's going to have the same opinion.
Is that what you do because you have 3 instructors that are part of your program now at Sword XP? So what do you look for someone to be an instructor and to work with you with these students that you have at the academy and et cetera, and as you continue to move forward, what qualities out of them do you need?
Well, the instructors I have there are the ones that are closest to me, that I've been there several times, but I am in contact with a number of others across the country. And, what I look for is basically, have you been able to do sword? And the key thing is to be able to adjust, because adapt. And I think, one of the things I tell a lot of my people that come to my events, I was going to say students, but the people that come to my events, is that it's a great saying I picked up, which basically says, for a species to survive, it has nothing to do with its intelligence or strength, but it has to do with its ability to adapt. And that to me is something that actually is applicable to the martial arts. If you are only going to do something a certain way, if somebody comes at you a different way, how do you adapt for that? Can you adapt for that? So therefore, I've been to different places, and sometimes I'll have people that are martial artists that come in and they'll say, well, I learned it this way, but I'm not teaching you that this way. It doesn't matter whether you learned it that way. You've got to get that out of your head to be able to do it this way. Because if you can't adapt, you will lose at some point, whether you're doing it as choreography or whether you're doing it as a fight, you will lose or you won't do it as well as you could do, because it's not it's not going to be effective. You're not going to be as effective as you would do. That's
Yeah. Polly Chaser wants to know, have you ever hurt yourself? I can answer that. I can answer that. Yeah, I think you probably have.
Yeah, I don't know how long you got for that one.
No, I'm sure you have. Like, even the wrestlers, even though it's predetermined, they still hurt themselves. They just move slightly the wrong way, one way or the other.
I've been split in a lot of places.
Yeah. My brother, who played pro football for 14 years, he looked kind of funny too. I mean, his knuckles and stuff like that. I mean, I have a friend of mine, Brian Baldinger, with the NFL Network. You see my pinky here. His pinky is out here, not here. It's out here.
Really?
First. Yeah. He was an offensive lineman for many, many years. He's a dear friend of mine. We've got a couple of minutes left here in the program. I want to go back to one thing. You made a comment about a movie you did, 9 Miles Down. You said it was one of the most emotional, challenging acting jobs you ever had. What was it that was so emotionally challenging?
Because it was all psychological. You had to get into the mind space of somebody that believed entirely that these things were happening to him, and how to project that and not make it overly overacted in a sense. So really to delve into that, you have to really sort of go into a deep place. And remember, I was shooting that over a period of 2-3 months. So to do that constantly, really, it can screw with your psyche sometimes. So
yeah,
I loved doing that role. I thought it was a great role. I mean, I enjoyed it. And, I was able to go to Tunisia. We shot in Tunisia and Hungary. And again, I'm always thankfully surprised with set designers and people that work on sets, because they do create magic. And you talked about being taken away to a different world. That's what actors do. They take you away to a different world, so you don't have to think about what's happening every day. But the set designers and the people that work behind the scenes and do the costumes, they are part of that whole process. And so, I've been very fortunate to see some really cool sets. We had some great ones on Highlander, but some really cool sets that people have created.
I loved your car too, by the way. I love the Thunderbird. I love that car. I wanted that car.
Sold that car, actually. I sold that car for $55,000.
Really?
At a Highlander auction in 1997.
Oh, I love that car.
And you'll love to know the guy restored it, luckily, because it didn't work. For that amount of money, I was like, really? Yeah, we used to have 2 of them because one was always breaking down. It was an older car, so they had to sort of.
Well, you didn't have to probably go very far. Jay is not far from where you live, and he's got his garage, and that's all he does. That's all he does. Just give me a call. I'll call him up. Hey, Jay, what's going on? Adrian, we've got a couple of minutes left, and after the show, please stay right there, because I want to talk to you just for a few minutes right after the show. Looking back on your life and looking at where you are today. By the way, folks, please don't forget to go to swordxp.com. Catch up on everything that Adrian's doing, and trust me, this man is such a gracious gentleman to come on this program, and I'm grateful. Looking back on your life, if you had to go back and talk to that young man that played for the London Spartan League, and the young man in general in London growing up, with what you know now, what would you say to him to help him in life now?
I would say, remember, you're a product. as an actor, you are a product, and therefore you have to understand what your value is and what you can supply to people. Today, you know, and the only way to do that is through hard work, but you have to also understand what people are trying to sell. As an actor, I'm talking about right now, because that's where I come from. And so I have certain things that agents and managers and all that can sell. And I realized that I was a product, and I'm not, the artistic part of it is great, but a lot of the time it means nothing to agents and managers or executives. They don't care. They just want to see if you can sell seats. You know, before the whole internet business, you know, it was all about getting bums in seats. You know, so what was your value? What was your worth? And what type of product are you able to be sold? So that's really, you know, what it is. But you know, again, you know, there's things, mistakes you make in life, but I think that's part of what your life should be. It's you learning it as you go along, and you, you know, your journey in life is you trying to rectify all the mistakes in the last one you were in.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are afraid of failure, afraid of making mistakes, and that's what holds them back from truly finding out who they really are, the inner person, the true person that they want to be. I had stage fright for years of being a stand-up comic, but I went and I did it. I overcame it. I wasn't that funny as a comic, obviously, because I'm a talk show host, but you know, I did it, you know, and I overcame that fear. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back. But all I know is this has been a thrill for me. Go ahead.
You know, there's one thing I'd like to say, because I think one thing, and I learned, because I've been in some dark places in my life, I realized that you never can really tell who a person really is until they're not going up, they're on the way down. You can never really see who you are unless you are in a dark spot.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's really, because then if you can get out of that spot and really be determined, then you as your soul will be gratified by pushing through and saying, I'm not going to let that happen. This is who I am. I know this is what my worth is. And eventually you will succeed.
Yes.
So you can never look down on that. And I think that's very important to understand.
Yeah, my dad used to have a saying, never kick a man while he's down. And when he is down, that's when he finds out who he truly is.
Yeah, exactly. You do.
You know,
you really do.
Know, it really is. Adrian, you have been wonderful to come on this particular program. I hope we can get you back at some particular time down the road. When you want to talk about something. And I just stay right there. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Let the gremlins seek where they want to be. And I want to thank all of you out there for joining us here, as you do on Main Street every Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. Next week, we have Frankie Pavette. He is an Academy Award-winning songwriter. He wrote the theme songs for Dirty Dancing, I've Had the Time of My Life, and Hungry Eyes. And he also has a special guest joining us at that time. So until next week, from Adrian Paul, Gary Allen, Main Street, please have a great week. Until next week, take care of yourselves and each other.
See you.